Hey guys, welcome back. This video is brought to you by, well, me, from 30,000 feet up. Spending some time out of town this last week, and I wrote this while on a plane, so hopefully the quality's up to par. I've been kind of blown away by the response to a couple of my videos recently, and it's exciting stuff, so I'm trying to keep things moving along. As always, I've got a slate of videos in the works, but if there's something you'd like to see me cover, just leave a comment below. So today, we're going to be talking about the returning Iron Banner SMG Multimach CCX. Seeing as this is one of my favorite archetypes of SMGs, I had very high hopes that it would handle itself well, and I'm here to tell you that it's far surpassed my expectations. It handles beautifully, has all-around decent stats, has a perk pool that allows you to spec out for specific preferences, and do so without sacrificing too much on one end or the other. I landed a roll last week that would probably be one of the best in the game if it wasn't for hipfire grip. Even still, I've been trying it in the Crucible lately, and it's absolutely shredding. I was also lucky enough to get a pretty decent roll for PvE as well, and we'll get into that more later. Regardless, I'm just excited to have a lightweight 900 RPM in the kinetic slot again. Before we get into that though, if you'd be so awesome as to subscribe and like the video at the end before you bug out, I'd really appreciate that. So let's start off by looking at the basis for Multimach CCX. You can get it from Iron Banner bounties, end of match rewards, or turning in tokens to Salad Man. CCX is a 900 RPM lightweight frame SMG, like I mentioned earlier, which means it has an extremely high rate of fire. It also gives you a boost in movement speed. Think Recluse. Same rate of fire, same speed boost. So you'll be landing around 19 damage per crit in the Crucible, which I believe ends up giving you an optimal time to kill around 0.67 seconds, which is very good. Optimal range for Multimach is going to be around 20 meters, give or take a few based on what you're speccing for. In my personal opinion, I wouldn't spec for all range because it's only going to net you maybe another 3-4 meters, and what you're sacrificing in stability and overall consistency is just not worthwhile. So perks like Iron Reach, which add plus 20 range but trash your stability, aren't exactly a good pick in my opinion on a primary like this. Multimach already sports a pretty decent range as it is, especially if you grab the right scope. Usually on an SMG you get barrel perks, not scopes, but scopes are good because some of them allow a higher zoom factor, which provides a much greater bump in range than say if you spec'd out a Death Adder for range. I have some very good Death Adder rolls for Crucible, like Dynamic Sway and Moving Target, Rangefinder Moving Target, but none of them felt as good as CCX here. So instead of being hamstrung with barrel perks like Death Adder, and being around 18 meters of range with bad stability, you're getting around 20 meters of range with CCX while still being able to keep your stability high with perks like Dynamic Sway and Iron Grip. And I know having a high zoom scope may not appeal to some of you, it feels a little more jumpy, you're more zoomed in on your target, recoil feels stronger, but there are options here that give you a nice boost in range and also handle beautifully. Another reason I would definitely prefer Multimach over something like Death Adder or even Recluse nowadays is because it has a 100 recoil direction. And while in testing I did see that it did deviate a little bit to the left, that high recoil direction kind of helps the weapon be extremely consistent and easy to manage, which is a huge positive to me. And before I continue on, do remember that these are just my personal preferences after all, and when it comes to perks, I'm going to prefer things that maybe not everyone would. Some people, generally speaking, like to go for range more than stability, or some perks over other perks. I just tend to like perks that provide consistency for the weapon. And especially when I'm reviewing weapons for this channel, my whole deal is kind of that I'm just a regular guy playing Destiny trying to give advice to other regular people. So a lot of times that's probably going to look like picking the roll on a gun that has higher stability than higher range. And I think a big reason for this is because I've been used to playing Destiny at 30 frames a second for about 7 years now, and I think that's where a lot of us are still at, playing on consoles that can only run 30 frames a second, compared to next-gen consoles or PC that can run the game at 60 frames or higher, as well as just having a 35-degree higher field of view. So with all that said, let's continue on with the review. So right out of the gate, this SMG has some great things going for it. What's also awesome is that Multimach has some great perk combinations going for it on top of an already small perk pool. So when you have only 5 possible perks in each column, you've got a great shot at getting a roll you actually want, rather than having your options diluted by loads of potential perks. The playlist weapons like Bottom Dollar, for example, have colossal perk pools, so just statistically speaking, landing the roll you want with even 2 or 3 variables in your favor is incredibly unlikely. So what are the rolls you actually want to look for on Multimach? Let's cover PvP first. I think in this case you want to shoot for more balanced stats, leaning towards stability. Since you already have scopes kicking up your range, you don't need to add a lot for Multimach to outperform its competitors. Handling is already fantastic, and reload is somewhat irrelevant if you ask me. Reloader mods can always help you compensate there, but you can't just slap on a mod to add stability, and I think that's probably where this weapon needs attention. So my recommended role would be either dynamic sway reduction plus iron grip, or killing wind and iron grip. I know there are other options you might find appealing like iron reach or iron gaze, but I think those perks sacrifice too much in places that you just can't compensate for elsewhere. To me, it doesn't matter how good your range stat is if your stability is tanked so hard you can't hit anything because your weapon's kicking way too much. Again, I try to tailor these videos to the average player like myself, to scrubs, and recommending max range, low stability just isn't something I can do. Iron reach is a pass for me, but so is iron gaze. Iron gaze drops your range down and adds aim assist, but I don't care how good your aim assist is when your optimal range is dropped to 17 meters, 16 meters. You're getting dangerously close to where Felwinter's Lie lives, around 13 or 14 meters, and suddenly you've got no room to work with without getting buckshot in your face every time. At that point, just call it quits and get your own shotgun. So you want to keep your range at about 20 meters, and with the right scope, that's really not too hard to do. Iron grip, however, adds that consistency and stability that you need in an SMG to be viable in the crucible. It does sacrifice reload speed, but there are lots of options to fix that. You can run reloader mods, Ophidian Aspect if you're a warlock, Peacekeepers for titans, or Dragon Shadow for hunters, which immediately reloads as well as provides a temporary buff in reload speed. In my experience, the slow reload isn't what usually gets me killed anyways, and it's overextending and getting double teamed because I was trying to get into optimal range. So because Iron Grip gives you so much stability, it lets you compete with other close range options because you can usually stay just outside of their optimal range. As for the first perk column again, Dynamic Sway is an excellent choice as it helps you achieve consistency really easily, increasing your stability as you burn through a mag. Killing Wind is probably your second best choice here since Quick Draw isn't much good on Multimach since it already has such high handling. The extra range and mobility is great after a kill, but my problem is that if you pair this with Iron Grip, it takes fairly long to reload, and after you're finally done reloading, you've only got maybe 3 to 3.5 seconds of Killing Wind left. Iron Grip is a no-brainer choice for me on this gun, so if you get it, it's automatically a viable role. So what's unfortunate, I guess, is that Killing Wind just doesn't synergize quite as well as other perks might. However, in terms of PvE, I'd probably say Killing Wind is a solid option. Since you're running into enemies constantly, it allows you to extend your range nicely out to 23, maybe 24 meters by activating Killing Wind, and still allowing yourself to spec for stability or reload in your other perk columns. I got a Killing Wind plus 1 for all roll last week, and I'm really a fan of it for PvE. You essentially always have that damage buff going from 1 for all, and Killing Wind is going to help you get that even easier. So to bring it all together, I'd say my top picks are Dynamic Sway and Iron Grip for PvP, and Killing Wind and 1 for all in PvE, or maybe Threat Detector and Kill Clip. I didn't really mention those earlier, but Threat Detector would be a great perk since you're getting up close and personal. It would increase your stability, it would increase your reload speed, and I think if you combine that with Kill Clip, you'd be really dealing some damage. I wouldn't really go for Subsistence since you're burning through your magazine so quickly as it is, and adding another 3 or 4 rounds per kill isn't really worthwhile. So yeah, I'd probably say Threat Detector, Kill Clip, or Threat Detector and 1 for all. So something else I like to think about when I'm reviewing a gun is what complements this gun nicely. What other weapons help fill the gaps that this weapon leaves? Multimach CCX is a short-range SMG, so what can help extend that range when you run into a longer range engagement? I think pairing a solid pulse rifle, scout rifle, or even sniper rifle would be a pretty good choice here. Any of those options should cover the bases pretty well after about 20 meters, and fortunately since Multimach is just a legendary, your exotic slot is free. So you have a lot of potential options here. I do have a couple recommendations here, my first one being Monarch. Sometimes I like a combination like this because you can tap someone with Monarch, close the gap, finish them off easily since the poison doesn't let them recover. Another option would be either Cloud Strike or Borealis. Cloud Strike could land you some collaterals, of course, and Borealis offers exceptional handling and overall performance. Seriously, if you haven't tried Borealis, you need to. It's one of the best feeling snipers in the game. Other honorable mentions would be the Crypt Scout Rifle Trustee, Stars in Shadow, and Deafening Whisper. Deafening Whisper is definitely going to play into that aggressive playstyle too, but I also just kind of like wave frame grenade launchers because they provide a unique and interesting way to approach engagements. As far as exotic armor you can use to synergize with the playstyle that goes with using Multimach CCX in the Crucible, I have a couple ideas here. Since you're likely going to have to play pretty aggressively with CCX and close the gap on people or control and manipulate engagements, you'll probably want to try some exotics that either help out your mobility ability or do just that, manipulate the battlefield. So the first exotic I tried was Athrys' Embrace. I'm not real good at it yet, but being able to bounce a knife around a corner behind cover and finish someone off that you drop to half health is a pretty great thing. Multimach is also great for this exotic since strengthened heavy knife is procced by getting crits, which you can get a whole bunch of pretty quickly, not like a hand cannon. A headshot is a headshot, whether it's an SMG, hand cannon, or scout rifle. So by using CCX, you get to proc strengthened heavy knife much easier, which I have heard has better aim assist, so that's something worth considering. Another reason I really like this pairing is because landing lots of headshots will get you a lot of super energy quickly with Bottom Tree Gunslinger. Practice makes perfect states that landing headshots grants super energy, which is incredibly easy to do with Multimach. So each kill you land is getting you at least double what you normally would, easily granting you 3, maybe even 4 supers in a crucible match. And with Bottom Tree Golden Gun, you can one-shot behemoths in their super with a Golden Gun precision shot, so if that's not motivation to get your super, I don't know what is. The same logic about stacking strengthened heavy knife, and practice makes perfect, applies also for Celestial Nighthawk in PvE as well. Having a rapid fire weapon like Multimach makes it incredibly easy to rack up super energy. Ultimately, that's true of any rapid fire weapon, but I figure that's worth bringing attention to in this case. Another option for PvP might be Shinobu's Vow. This is another one you can use to manipulate your opponent, flush them out of cover into your range, or just straight up finish them off. This exotic is great because it chains off of itself, granting grenade energy when you hit opponents with it, as well as giving a second grenade charge. Combine this with Ashes to Assets on a solar helmet, and you'll have a great way to get your super back quickly, just like with Bottom Tree Gunslinger. I'd recommend trying Middle Tree Arc Strider if you're going to do this. It's effective against Warlock and Hunter Stasis supers, and when it comes time to pop your super, you can just switch to Ryu's Harness. Although admittedly, I will say, you're still going to get frozen out of your super sometimes. It just happens, and that's where we're at in the Crucible right now. Until Bungie decides to fix stasis, I think the Crucible is going to be a janky place for a little while. It kind of goes without saying that there are tons of builds and options you could use in combination with the close quarter, aggressive playstyle that Multimach CCX offers. But I just haven't had enough time to experiment with those on my Hunter, not even mentioning Warlocks or Titans. Maybe someday I'll have time. I know Iron Banner isn't going on right now, but I would really try and get this SMG next time it comes around in about 2 weeks. Also, a quick note about the perks, I said there were 5 in each column, there's actually 6. Anyway, I hope next time Iron Banner rolls around you guys can get some really good rolls on this thing, because it's a lot of fun. But for now, I think that wraps up our review of Multimach CCX. Really appreciate you guys watching the video, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel and like the video. Your support really does mean a lot. Leave a comment too, I'd love to talk about this one. Also, I'd like to try and keep these reviews short but still informative, so let me know what you guys think of this one. I did go a little longer than I was planning to. Either way, hope you guys enjoyed. I'll see you next time.